Hey, Curtis.
Hey, Oz.
What do you got for us this week?
This week, our movie marriage, we've got Twin Peaks crossed with American Beauty alongside a factory tour of the Pabst Blue Ribbon. This week, we've got 1986's Blue Velvet.
Oh, it could have been a Heineken factory, too. Either one would have worked.
Heineken, F that S. Pabst Blue Ribbon.
I know, it was like a commercial. It's so weird. Oh, welcome back, listeners and viewers, to another week of Let's Talk About Flicks, the podcast where we take a monthly theme and satisfy it weekly. Not as in we're not strong men, because we're big, strong men.
Oh, yeah,
that's not what we meant
big
by
strong man, armpit hair, and such.
That's not what we meant by weekly. But we do this every 7 days.
Spindly.
We do such an unsatisfactory job of satisfying the requirements. I'm one of your hosts, Oz.
I'm the other host, Curtis.
And we are here this week to talk about Blue Velvet. As we just talked about how manly we are, we're going to talk about different fabrics and their hues. Oh, but before we get too far, though, we definitely want to give a shout out to our Patreon subscribers, Don S., Aaron A., and ADK. Thank you very much once again for your donations. Blue Velvet.
I know. Continuing with our Bloovies theme this month.
It is week 3 of Bloovies. Mm-hmm.
Very eclectic group of movies we have this month.
It really is. Have you watched next week's movie yet?
I did. I already watched next week's, which we'll give the preview of at the end of this episode, just to keep you waiting and wanting. But yeah, that was also an interesting film.
Okay, good. Obviously we'll keep the tidbits for next week. But whenever you know how I am, whenever I introduce you to something, I really like. I'm like the old lady getting piano lessons in The Wedding Singer. Like, I want to watch you eat. I want to watch you eat the meatball.
That's a good meatball.
And so I'm just like, I hope he likes it.
And speaking of the old lady from The Wedding Singer,
she was here.
She's in Blue Velvet. She
is in Blue Velvet. So a completely unintentional segue into our cast of characters.
There we go.
Which is on me. On me this week, we have. Let's go with our top 4, and then we'll fill in from there.
Sure.
We've got the good guys, the bad guy, and the treasure of the Sierra Madre. Something right there in the middle.
Sure.
That MacGuffin that keeps things moving along. Guffin. Our good guys are played by Kyle MacLachlan, playing Jeffrey Beaumont, a college boy who comes home because dad had a mystery illness in the yard in the opening credits.
Yes.
And his fellow good guy is Sandy Williams, played by Laura Dern, an 18-year-old Laura Dern.
Yes, very young Laura Dern.
An extremely young Laura Dern. They're the good guys. They are the kids. It's summer. There's just really nothing going on. So let's just dig into what's going on in our town. The bad guy, the main bad guy is Dennis Hopper, playing Dennis Hopper, but AKA Frank Booth. He's your bad guy.
Yeah.
He's your town narcotics distributor.
Yep.
He's just bad. Really top to bottom. He's just a bad guy.
Yeah. Kind of a walking definition of evil kind of guy.
Yes, he really is. And then your central piece here is Isabella Rossellini playing Dorothy Vallens. Dorothy has a backstory, which I'll let you get into. But Dorothy is a pawn in this game, and it's very unfortunate because of the things that she has to do for specific reasons.
Yeah.
So those are our main 4. We do have, Sandy's got parents, whose dad is a detective. Jeffrey Beaumont's got a mom and aunt that's around. You know, it's like everybody else is just really the only other like pieces that would fit in would be like Dean Stockwell has a role as Ben. Yeah. It's not even I don't know, he's not really even a major part. And it's just, I don't know. It's if you've seen a David Lynch movie, you get it because they're there, they're play a function, they do it brilliantly, and then they're just gone. Like everything is just kind of one note. Jack Nance is in the movie. Brad Dourif is in the movie.
Yeah, we got an early Brad Dourif role. I know. Pre-recording, we were talking about the Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah, we were. And how they line up with how they line up with the new Legend of Zelda game.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there, like I said, there's people here that you'll recognize. You may not remember why you recognize them, but everybody does just a great job.
Yeah.
There's no. I mean, I wouldn't even. I don't know. Would you say Dennis Hopper like steals the scenes he's in?
I don't know if. I don't know if I'd say steals, but like the point of his character is just to be incredibly manic, and so I don't know if steals is the right word, but that's the character. It's not meant to steal the scene; it's meant to dominate the scene. Exactly,
like he's very clearly the centerpiece of every scene he's in.
Yeah,
which I mean, I didn't even think steal is the right word, but it's his. Like even if the scene is between two other people, once he enters the scene, they just get out of the way because it's the Frank Booth show. So that's really it when it comes to cast. It's really those main four: Dorothy Vallens, Jeffrey Beaumont, Frank Booth, and Sandy Williams.
Yeah.
There's a lady that dances on a car, which will come up later.
Yeah,
I love that. And that's it for my cast. So what do you got for a plot?
As far as the plot of Blue Velvet, I'll do my best to keep this as I don't know if
linear,
as I can for a David Lynch movie. This is a Dino De Laurentiis production, Oz.
And I am a fan of Dino De Laurentiis productions. He did Flash Gordon, so one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time.
Flash Gordon.
It is. I love Flash Gordon. Such a guilty pleasure.
Flash.
It's just so good. Like Dino De Laurentiis is like he's like Roger Corman with a little bit more money.
Yeah.
Like hey, we'll get your movie made. We'll do it. And we'll stay out of the way.
He funded Evil Dead 2, didn't he?
I believe so. I will look that up real quick. We got Angelo Badalamenti music too. That's important. We can't leave that out. Evil Dead 2. He did. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So after we see that this is a Dino De Laurentiis production, we open on a blue sky, panning down to an incredibly white picket fence. That is the whitest picket fence that there is, as the song Blue Velvet plays. This is clearly kind of a suburban, like a rural suburban kind of setting. It's supposed to be this very peaceful, peaceful community where nothing can go wrong, Oz. An old fire engine drives by. This movie is kind of was anachronistic in that it never quite gives you a sense of when it happens, which I love, and it really adds to the kind of distortion that you get with this movie, and how it's supposed to feel kind of off. Like nothing's quite exactly the way you think it is,
and everything gives you that sense of safety that is too much of a sense that you ever really feel safe.
Yeah.
Like it's like a new coat of polish. Like even like one of the most, and it shouldn't even be haunting, but opening credits, a fire truck drives by and there's a fireman standing there smiling and just waving, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but it just feels off. It's like it's like you're waiting for his face to do the black hole sun thing.
Yeah.
It's like that video gave me kind of the same vibe. Everything in that video was just smiles and flowers, but then everybody's face was just a little distorted. And obviously this guy's wasn't. But it's like you've got like, this is what the town wants you to see of itself.
It's the veneer it puts on.
Yes. And then there's other things below that we're hiding.
So yeah, there's the perfect Dalmatian is sitting there right on the fire engine as well. We cut to an elderly man just watering his lawn, and I love the little build up to this scene. Like he's like the hose is kind of tangled in some bushes, and you see like the hose literally become like tense up, gets wrapped around things, and and then it cuts to this this elderly man having some kind of medical incident. It's kind of speculated it's probably some kind of neurological incident, but he just starts kind of shaking and ticking, and then he just falls over. We then see an insect point of view shot. My love for point of view shots for things that aren't walking through grass, big pile of bugs. We then meet Jeffrey. He's walking. He had walked through kind of a, I don't know, like a little patch of, I don't know, kind of.
Yeah, it's like an overgrown alley or
yes,
something.
Like scraggly grass. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he arrives to the hospital. He visits his father. Turns out the elderly man from the beginning was his father. The man is crying. Kind of a disturbing little shot. It kind of pushes in on the dad, who's, he's in traction. They have his head stabilized, and Jeffrey is just kind of very unsettled by this. And then we see him walking back through the same kind of scraggly alleyway, and Jeffrey looks down, Oz, and he discovers a human ear.
Yeah.
In this grassy field.
It's kind of moldy, like.
Yeah. Been there a little while. There's bugs on it, but just right there, we're a couple minutes into the movie, and our main character comes across in the middle of this peaceful, quiet town a human ear.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't stumble like it's not like somebody's shoe.
Yeah.
It was whenever you find one lost shoe, I always wonder, how do you lose a shoe?
Yeah.
But
like when one shoe ends up in like the telephone lines.
Yeah. It's like, how do you lose a shoe? But no, this obviously is escalated to like, and it just leads to a lot of questions of how long has it ear been there? Like, because the town is functioning as normal, with somebody missing an ear.
Yeah.
It's just like, but it's like, if Jeffrey doesn't see that, this movie doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's like one of those really like, kickstart the plot forward. And it's so, I love David Lynch. I mean, just the little things. And like, I was going to chime in earlier, when Jeffrey's dad fell over, like one of the first things that got to him was the dog.
Yeah.
And the dog wasn't paying any attention to him, but he was still clutching the hose, which was shooting water, and the dog's just trying to bite the stream. And it's like
just lapping at the water, yeah.
Yeah, and it's those little things that it's like, that's what David Lynch wanted, and that's what he got. They found a dog that would do that, and it's like, sometimes I think it just goes, it's so over, just looked over of how difficult some of this stuff probably is. And it's like, no, that's what he wanted, and that's what he got. Was I want a dog, to not only have that idea, but then to get it executed on film. It's just. I've gone on before about when directors get mental visions and can put them on celluloid, and I just think it's so awesome when they know what they want.
Lynch is notorious for that, yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So you kind of led into Jeffrey's curiosity, and that's really what drives this movie. He finds this ear, and then the rest of the movie is honestly just Jeffrey being incredibly curious. Like, the audience, of course, is curious, like, what is going on? There's a human ear here in this field. And Jeffrey has that same curiosity. He picks it up, puts it in a bag, brings it to Detective Williams at the Lumberton police station. Talk to the coroner. Nobody's come through has been missing an ear. So it suggests that the person is alive. And the coroner says that this ear was probably cut off using a pair of household scissors.
Oh, God.
Probably like the safety scissors as well. With the round ends. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably the ones that they use in kindergarten that like cut the squiggles.
Yeah. with the wavy.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they use the glue stick to glue the ear back
on. Yeah, the purple one. And when it goes clear, it's dry.
Then it's dry. Then it's working. So again, Jeffrey is incredibly curious. He kind of goes back and observes them collect evidence at the crime scene, which is a little weird that they allowed him to do that, but whatever.
Yeah, it's North Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. Jeffrey then goes to Detective Williams's house to because he's curious. He keeps asking questions, and Williams gives him a couple nuggets, but I can't really talk details. As Jeffrey leaves, we meet Sandy Oz. So Jeffrey's outside, and Sandy kind of steps out of the shadows into the light, wearing a very kind of vibrant pink dress. She's a very... I love the way that they dressed her character in this movie. It's lots of light colors, whites, pinks, very, very bright colors, because she really is kind of the hope and the good in the movie. She's the one character who consistently, is doing the right thing for the right reasons, and there's no nefariousness to her.
Right.
And Sandy steps out and asks Jeffrey, "Are you the one who found the ear?" So they walk and talk. Turns out she's a year or two younger than Jeffrey. Jeffrey is a college student. He's been away for a year or two. She's a senior in high school. And Jeffrey just kind of keeps inquiring about the ear. He can't let it go.
Right.
And Sandy says, "Well, you know what? I know that they've been... This might have to do with it, it might not. But I know that they've been keeping a woman named Dorothy Vallens under surveillance a lot lately. Maybe she has something to do with it." So they walk right up to the apartment. She points out which one she lives in.
Because her bedroom's above her dad's office, so she overhears a lot of his work conversations.
Yeah. So she's not quite as curious as Jeffrey is, but she's very observant.
But even then, she comes across this information still innocently. I wasn't snooping. I just am upstairs and I hear him talking.
It's an earshot. I can't not hear it. Yeah.
Right.
So the next day, Jeffrey pulls up to her high school in a red convertible to pick up Sandy. He takes her to dinner and says, "I want to sneak into Dorothy Vallens' apartment." So Jeffrey's got some quirks, Oz.
a few.
Yes. We will get into some more of those as we go. And it didn't... this, again, like any David Lynch movie, you find something new every time you watch it. And I've probably seen this movie at least a good dozen times, 15 times. And, it wasn't until a couple of times in that I really noticed, Jeffrey's curiosity about this and kind of, how his curiosity can work against him. And he's not the perfect guy in a lot of ways. So Sandy initially says no. And Jeffrey, and again, this is one of the things that I never really kind of noticed his tone until this time I watched it. Jeffrey kind of cutely but sternly responds, "Sandy, don't take that attitude."
Yeah. I got the vibe because Jeffrey says multiple times in this movie that he's away at college and he's only back because his dad, had his medical condition, is in the hospital. Mm-hmm. So I just got the vibe that college is probably great for Jeffrey because he can really satisfy that curiosity. Whereas home, this town is boring. And the marriage of his curiosity and something interesting happened for Jeffrey. Mm-hmm. And he just can't, like you say, he just can't shake it. Yeah. And so he's willing to manipulate what he needs to get what he
You beat
wants.
Me to the word there, and that word was manipulate. So throughout this movie, he very, sometimes subtly, sometimes not so, but Jeffrey is a manipulator. So he tells Sandy, I'll pretend to be a pest guy. I'll come in, a few minutes later, you'll come to the door, pretend to be a Jehovah's Witness, and I'll jimmy a window so that I can get in later. No one will think two people like us would be crazy enough to do something like that. Yeah. So he's also using his privilege, but I'll just just end that one right there. So
he's aware of who he is. Yeah. Like I'm going to take advantage of what I can because no one's going to assume it's me. So I don't like Jeffrey.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that later. So we cut to Dorothy's apartment, and unnervous Dorothy lets Jeffrey in. She's clearly, a little out of her element, not necessarily because he's there, but something, you get the feeling something is immediately up. She's very kind of jittery.
Right. Yeah.
Keeps kind of checking in with them. She's kind of nervously walking around and whatnot. There's a great static shot of just the camera being static and still, and he and Dorothy are just kind of walking around in the back. I love shots like that where it's like you just establish the frame and let the acting and the action happen within that. So instead of Sandy knocking, an upset-looking man comes to the door and comes in. And as that happens, Jeffrey is not able to jimmy a window, but he comes across the set of keys, which he takes. So later, he tells Sandy, "I'm going to sneak in tonight." And she tells Jeffrey, "I have a date." And Jeffrey responds, "Well, that does that." And he's kind of angry at her.
Yeah.
So again, like another thing that I never really noticed until more recent viewings of this movie. But again, he is a manipulator, that Jeffrey. Sandy agrees to blow off her date with Mike, and they'll go check out where Dorothy sings. So as later they show up to the Slow Club.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey and Sandy, they toast to an interesting experience. Jeffrey lays out I like Heineken.
I mean, it was such an aggressive product placement in this movie.
Well, and Jeffrey is very aggressive at how he expresses his love for Heineken.
Yeah.
On a couple different occasions, he's like, "Man, Heineken."
Yeah, like I was waiting for there to be like camera 2 that he could cut to, and then deliver.
Just turn and look directly into the camera.
Yeah, with 86 calories per serving, you sure can't beat a Heineken.
Nuprin, little, yellow, different.
Exactly.
Pepsi, the choice of a new generation.
Yeah, he's got his Reeboks on as he's eating his Pizza Hut.
I wasn't expecting to tie Wayne's World into this.
Calgon, take me away.
Nice. Anyone under the age of 40 will not get that reference.
No, not at all. Not at all.
You're better off for it. So after they get to the club and they toast over Heineken, the blue lady, Dorothy Vallens, is introduced. Jeffrey is really eyeing her up, and she sings a very, very sultry version of Blue Velvet as Sandy sits there very uncomfortably. They drive back kind of in silence. Sandy looks kind of unsettled at Jeffrey. They pull up to Dorothy's apartment. Sandy tells Jeffrey, "Don't go in." Sandy tells Jeffrey, "I don't know if you're a detective or a pervert." And he responds with, "Well, that's for me to know and you to find out."
Hey.
That's the same line I used to land my wife as well.
I know you did. You ran it by me beforehand.
Yeah.
I'm going to give her just enough that she's not going to know if I'm a detective or a pervert.
Yep. And you toasted me at our wedding with that line.
Did. With Heinekens.
with Heinekens everywhere. It's the only drink we served that night. No water, no champagne, Heineken.
It was a really odd Blue Velvet themed wedding.
It was
nice.
Yeah, I came out with a piece of my wife's dress in my mouth. It was. I
can't believe what you had your wife not wear to that wedding.
And the red convertible and everything.
All right.
So Jeffrey enters her apartment using the keys that he stole. Looks around, sees a children's party hat. Sandy, they had worked out a system. I'll honk the horn when somebody gets back, and of course he doesn't hear because he's too busy loudly urinating into the toilet.
It's a real ropey stream of Mr. Jeffrey.
And saying out loud, "Man, Heineken." This was one of the little moments in the script. Like, I love David Lynch, but it's like, did you really have to remind the audience why he's peeing? Maybe it was the 10 Heinekens he threw back at the.
I get the vibe. I get the vibe. Heineken wanted some product placement, and Lynch is like, "Fine, it's just like we're gonna go overboard with it." Then,
man, this Heineken's really coming out of me like no other Heineken can,
or Heineken bottle. It did though. It sounded like he was holding a 5-gallon Gatorade bucket and just letting it drain.
Like Leslie Nielsen in The Naked Gun, where he just pees for 2 minutes straight.
Yeah,
with the open microphone.
Yep. But yeah, she's honking away and he can't hear over his stream.
Yeah. So he hears the door start to unlock, and he immediately just dives in the living room closet, like the coat closet, which of course has the slats that you can kind of see through from one way but not the other. And she kind of walks in, kind of hurriedly. She starts undressing, removes a wig. She's about to open the closet, and the phone rings, and she answers it. And you hear her talking to someone named Frank. She's begging Frank if she can talk to Don and asks if little Donnie is all right. She gets on the phone and tells little Donnie that Mommy loves you. Yeah. So, like, what is going on here? And again, we're seeing this, we're capturing all this through Jeffrey's perspective.
Right. And we know no more than he knows.
Yeah. So we're discovering everything as he does. Jeffrey chooses not to escape when Dorothy goes down a hall to the bathroom. That is also something that, like, he had a chance to leave.
Yeah, curiosity is too much.
He chooses to stay and then watches her remove her bra and underwear and put on a blue velvet dress. Then as we get one of the awesomest and bizarre and unsettling scenes, and not only in this movie, but I think in a lot of recent cinema, an incredibly intense scene where Dorothy hears Jeffrey in the closet. She hears something move, grabs a knife, opens it. He comes out terrified.
Yeah.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
And she's terrified. She's holding a knife on him, just starts to scream questions at him, asks who he is, who sent you. He saw her undress, so she demands that he does the same.
Oh, yeah. Like, it just really turns the tables because even as a viewer, you have no idea this is the direction it's going.
Yeah. Yeah, like initially you think, she's going to either kick him out, call the police, hurt him, but she asks him to undress, which kind of, just ups the tension in the scene because it's not what you expect to happen. Continuing with that, not expecting what to happen, she kneels down in front of him, removes his underwear, and then starts to perform a sex act on him. Yeah. And in the meantime, you're watching his facial reactions as he is unsettled and frightened. But also, again, he didn't run away.
Right.
So there's a part of him that's almost like enjoying this as well. A knock on the door interrupts them as she's just taken him over to the couch. And then, screams, "Don't touch me," and asks, "Do you like it when I yell that at you?" And then we get this knock on the door, all within the same scene.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like Jeffrey, not that Jeffrey was ever in control of his choices here, but he's completely lost all control.
Yes. We do see Lil Kyle MacLachlan for a moment as well. His stunt double makes an appearance. So we meet Frank Booth in person. Frank and another man enters. Jeffrey is hiding naked in the closet. Frank walks in, just immediately insults Dorothy, asks for his bourbon, starts huffing nitrate, and starts saying incredibly unsettling things about Mommy and what Daddy wants to do as there's veins popping out of his face and neck. It's still the same scene. Frank starts hitting her as he's just settling in here, and Dorothy seems to enjoy it.
Yeah. You just, like, as a viewer, you hate seeing it because you feel for it, but then you get confused when she's not fighting it. She's, like you said, she seems to enjoy it, because then you just feel weird. Like, I don't like what I'm watching. And it's like, we're now Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, we can't help it. It's just like, oh, well, is it bad? Because they're both having a good time. Like, I don't know.
Yes. And again, wide-eyed Jeffrey is just back in the closet watching this.
Yeah.
Frightened, confused, but still curious.
Mm-hmm.
After they have some kind of, I'll just describe as sex act, Frank tells her he's still alive. Do it for Van Gogh. Yeah. So for those that knew, Van Gogh, he cut his own ear off. Was that it?
Yes.
He lost the ear?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he leaves. Jeffrey then comes out of the coat closet to comfort Dorothy, and she addresses him as Don and asks Jeffrey to hold her. She then kisses Jeffrey, gives Jeffrey her permission to touch her and hit her, and she's sad and disappointed when he doesn't.
Yeah.
So Jeffrey, still just unsure what to make of all this, goes to leave, and he sees a picture of Dorothy with her husband and child, and the child is wearing the same party hat that he had come across. The next evening, I was just going to stop and take a breath there for a moment.
Yeah.
An incredibly intense scene.
Oh,
Again, I've seen this movie well over a dozen times, and this scene never loses its intensity for me.
No. And it's all Dennis Hopper and Isabella Rossellini. 100% these two. And I'd read in the trivia, this scene was the first scene they shot together.
I did not read that. Wow.
Yeah, I read that this was, that she chose under that dress to go with nothing. And their first scene was this. And when she peels back the dress and he's right there, he's met with nothing.
Yeah.
And had never worked with this woman before. And it's even making the movie was full of firsts, so for us to it is such an intense scene, and it's all these two, just all the power of these two.
Yeah, incredible performances by both actors. So the next night, Sandy picks hang on, I might have my notes wrong here. Or Sandy picks up Jeffrey, and he's very distant with her. Jeffrey tells Sandy about Dorothy and Frank, although Jeffrey does not reveal any of the physical encounters that he had with Dorothy. So he leaves out a good chunk of things. Again, trying to maintain his good guy image with her.
Yeah, because that's what's most important to him.
Mm-hmm. Later, Jeffrey shows back up at Dorothy's, and again, he can't stay away. He's fully sucked into this.
Right.
She says she looked for him in the closet. So again, there's something off with Dorothy. Which we'll continue to get to. But again, that's pretty evident here. She tells him that she liked being with him the prior night. They kiss and then they have sex.
Yeah.
So later we see Jeffrey back at the club again, watching her perform by himself this time. Sandy's not there. He's drinking Heineken from a glass. Jeffrey sees Frank there, and Frank is very into it. In fact, he even has a small piece of the dress that Dorothy was wearing before. Jeffrey follows Frank and his goons to a factory hideout in an industrial part of town. After picking up Sandy from school the next day, Jeffrey tells her what he saw, including the Yellow Man, which is the man that initially barged into Dorothy's apartment, and that he saw the Yellow Man with Frank at this other site, and that he witnessed a murder. Sandy tells Jeffrey, you gotta stop this, and he says, I'm seeing something that was always hidden. And Sandy calls him out for liking mysteries too much, and then he tells Sandy, you're a mystery. I like you.
Yeah, take that, Sandy.
Uh-huh.
Sandy's not a mystery.
Yeah.
She's
not.
She's pure, and that to Jeffrey is mysterious, because he knows he's mysterious. He's intrigued by Dorothy's mystery, and then with Sandy, it's almost like everybody I know has something hidden, and I don't think he could fully appreciate that Sandy isn't hiding anything.
Yeah,
that she
very much is who she is. There is no mystery with Sandy. She's just a genuinely good person, and it's all right there. So that night, Jeffrey returns to Dorothy's apartment again for the third time, the third consecutive night. He goes back there.
He's got a key, so
yeah. They immediately kiss, have sex, and she says, "I want you to hurt me," and then after initially like saying he's not going to, he does. And again, she enjoys it.
Yeah.
There's a little Lynchian moment that happens here next. Like before, when Frank was there, the audio and the video kind of slowed to almost like a blur between Frank and Dorothy, and we kind of get that same effect here with Jeffrey and Dorothy. She says she's not crazy and that he's her special friend. Jeffrey goes to leave, and this time he's not able to walk away from this one, Oz. Frank and his goons are arriving, and they catch Jeffrey as he's leaving Dorothy's place. Frank has a big affection for the F word, Oz.
Oh, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
It's rare that he says a sentence without using that word.
And it's so intense when it comes out, too.
Yeah.
Like...
And when he sees Jeffrey, he goes, "Hey, who is this F?"
Yeah.
And again, it's just blistering the way he delivers it.
Dennis Hopper, that word out of Dennis Hopper's mouth is just, it's like a dart. Like,
yeah. It's like spoken sandpaper.
Yes, it is.
Oof. And then they decide to take Jeffrey and Dorothy for a joyride.
Yeah. Good for them, like, to get out, see the town.
Yeah.
It's really good for them.
And it's nice that they worked in the song Joyride by Roxette.
Exactly.
A lot of Roxette played over this movie.
And then they went and saw the movie Joyride featuring Paul Walker. It's kind of a meta thing to get going.
Yeah.
It was a lot of good, it's a good time.
Yeah. There's like, I don't know how many people are packed into this car. There's like 6 or 7 people in this tiny car.
Yeah, it's a Chrysler sardine. Like, they're all in there.
The Chrysler sardine. I think they made that from 74 to 77, the Chrysler sardine.
Yeah, seats 12. It was really comfy.
And a V8.
Yeah.
They go to Ben's place, as the aforementioned Ben, Dean Stockwell, and as you mentioned, Jack Nance and Brad Dourif are goons. I love their goonery in this.
I do too.
We get the the Frank Heineken, F that S, F blue ribbon.
So PBRB ASAP.
Ben is very soft-spoken, and Frank really, really likes Ben and keeps calling him suave. There's something about Ben that is like intoxicating to Frank. Like Ben is like to Frank like the epitome of class and like debonair. They intimidate Jeffrey. Frank and Ben each punch him. Ben gives Frank lots of drugs. Frank,
all of the drugs.
Yes, all of the drugs. Frank tells Ben that they killed the other drug dealer, and then Frank lets Dorothy see her kid, who's in another room. So she happily goes into another room. We don't see it. We just see her enter the other room. Ben starts lip syncing into a work lamp to the song "In Dreams" by Roy Orbison, which another bizarre, unsettling scene. Very David Lynchian.
Yeah, and Ben, like, you get the vibe that where he is it's like just a house of prostitution. Like, there's a lot of plus size women just sitting around. You know, it's like that's where Ben's at. It's some kind of harem of sorts, and it's just, but yet no customers, no one's there. It's like it's almost like Ben feels like an NPG in a role-playing game.
Sure, I can see that.
Like I'm just here in my setting, prepared to do my part whenever Frank shows up. You know, like, you get no other what's Ben doing in the morning, what's Ben doing later. It's just, this is what Ben's ready to do at all times.
Yeah, that is his constant state of existence. So they leave. We get a classic David Lynch shot of lines on the highway going by at night.
Oh, yeah.
In the car, Frank hits the gas again and turns around and tells Jeffrey, "You're like me." Frank starts to talk dirty and grope Dorothy. Jeffrey yells, "Leave her alone," and then punches Frank from the back seat. There's like 5 goons in the car. And Jeffrey decides to be a tough guy, punches Frank. They quickly hit the brakes and get out. Frank smears lipstick all over his mouth and starts repeatedly kissing Jeffrey. I'll kind of let you jump in. So "In Dreams" is playing here, Oz, and then the woman gets on top of the car.
Yeah, like, like Dorothy's like she's helpless in all of this. You know, all this is going on. It's like Frank meant to grab the chapstick and grab the wrong tube. Like it's all over. But yeah, then one of these women from Ben's like just climbs on top of the car and just starts dancing to the violence. And it's such a Lynchian thing that you can't take your eyes off of it. It's somehow completely out of place, yet completely mesmerizing at the same time.
Yeah, mesmerizing is a great word for it. And again, incredibly intense, can't peel your eyes away. They beat up Jeffrey, but they do leave him alive. They just leave him there in the middle of nowhere. The next day, Jeffrey makes it back home, kind of reflects on him hitting Dorothy and cries to himself. On the phone, Jeffrey tells Sandy that I know things. She tells Jeffrey, "You need to talk to my father, even if I, Sandy, also get in trouble." Later, Jeffrey goes to the police station to talk to Detective Williams, and Oz, he sees the yellow man there. So that man that he saw yelling at Dorothy initially in her apartment is Detective Williams's partner.
Right.
The plot thickens.
Ooh.
So Jeffrey,
I like thick plots. I can't lie.
Jeffrey puts it together that the yellow man and this Detective Gordon is his actual name, that he works with Frank, and then he's the one that killed the other drug dealer. So he's basically running cover for Frank.
Right. And it's not Jim Gordon.
No, not that Detective Gordon.
Right. We don't overlap with Whitworth Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is not from Lumberton, North Carolina.
Although it'd be funny if he was.
It would be, yeah. It's like, Superman's in Metropolis, but also from Kansas. Like the Wayne family originated in Lumberton, North Carolina.
Lumberton, North Carolina.
Before making their way to Gotham.
So Jeffrey that night goes to the Williams household to talk to Sandy's father. Jeffrey shows Detective Williams the photos he took at Frank's hideout, which includes the yellow man and Gordon, who Detective Williams recognizes and clearly is kind of unsettled by it, as well as the third well-dressed man that Jeffrey recognizes, another man who's connected to this with a very heavy mustache. Williams is clearly disturbed and recognizes Gordon. Jeffrey says that Dorothy Vallens is in danger and that Frank kidnapped her husband and son. I don't have evidence of this, but I have observed this. A few evenings later, Jeffrey again shows up at the Williams household to pick up Sandy. She's all done up. Gordon is there. Williams clearly is not indicated anything to Gordon as well. He's just playing along with it. Looks squarely at Jeffrey and then kind of says, like, take it easy. Jeffrey and Sandy then go to a high school party. Most of her friends are. They dance, they kiss, they say they love each other. So all that is happening with Jeffrey alongside of whatever he's been doing with Dorothy. So they leave the party, and this dark-colored car screeches up behind them and rams them. Jeffrey says, "It's Frank. We need to get your father's gun." Instead, Sandy recognizes it's her boyfriend Mike and his buddies, all loaded up. So they end up stopping in front of Jeffrey's house. Mike calls out, "Jeffrey, get out of the car." When Oz, out of nowhere, we have a wide shot of this happening in the foreground.
Yeah.
A completely naked Dorothy stumbles out from around the Beaumont household.
Yeah.
And just kind of stumbles up, just stopping everything that's happening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Which, to be fair, Mike and his buddies are a bunch of high school boys.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that, if a completely naked woman showed up out of nowhere, a bunch of high school boys are going to stop and look. So,
yeah.
Dorothy, you saved him.
Yeah.
You saved Jeffrey here.
So Sandy recognizes Dorothy. And they get Dorothy into Jeffrey's car, and they drive over to Sandy's home, the Williams home, to get her father. And in the car, she's kind of pawing at Jeffrey and calling him by his name because, of course, Dorothy and Jeffrey know each other.
Which Sandy doesn't know.
And so she's just incredibly confused and anxious. So they get there, and they're in the Williams living room, and Dorothy just starts screaming, "Don't get the police!" Starts screaming at Jeffrey that she loves him. Sandy is just horrified. absolutely horrified.
Because let's not forget, she's an 18-year-old high school senior. Yeah. Like this isn't even normal behavior, like in the adult relationship world, let alone high school senior. And again, Dorothy's married with a kid, so she's much older than these two anyway.
Yes. And you know what, less than an hour before, you know, Jeffrey and Sandy had kissed and exchanged I love yous to each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So this is all on the heels of that. And Dorothy says, and this is another just sort of iconic multiple meaning line from this movie, Dorothy just says, he put his disease in me, and asks Jeffrey to promise her that Jeffrey will help him. So Sandy slaps Jeffrey, medics load Dorothy into the ambulance. On the phone together later, Sandy tells Jeffrey she's forgiven him, but that she just couldn't watch that. Jeffrey tells her, I got to go back to Dorothy's apartment. So for the fourth time, Jeffrey goes back to Dorothy's apartment. He enters the apartment, and we see Gordon standing there in his yellow jacket. Wounded Gordon.
Real eerie scene here.
Yes. Again, very David Lynch. Standing there with a head wound, matching that from a shattered TV screen, so it's heavily implied that his head was rammed into this TV. Don, or who we assume is Don, because there's a tied-up man in a chair with a missing ear and a bullet hole in his forehead, is sitting there. We get a jump scare as Gordon's police radio goes off. The radio says that there's a raid led by Detective Williams at Frank's hideout. We get a quick cut over there, just a kind of a quick gun battle between the police and these goons at the hideout. Jeffrey leaves and just kind of tells them, like, just says out loud, I'm going to let them find you on their own. So he starts going down the stairs, and he looks up, and he sees the well-dressed man from Frank's hideout entering the building. Looks down the staircase, and he exchanges eye contact with the well-dressed man, and it is a disguised Frank Booth. Very, very eerie disguise, I will say.
Yeah, and not a good one. Like, I mean, you knew right away. I don't know about you, I did. I won't say the first time we saw the well-dressed man, but when we saw him, it's like, that's Dennis Hopper.
Yeah. Especially when you saw him up close. And it was one of those scenes, when I first watched this, probably like late teens or so, the scene of them making eye contact always kind of just freaked me out.
Yeah.
Because it's the well-dressed man, Frank Booth, walking in a frame, and then he looks up and makes eye contact with Jeffrey, but he looks directly into the camera.
Yeah, it's like he's looking at us.
Yeah, and it's that scene always just sent shivers up my spine. So Jeffrey, retreats to the apartment, locks himself in, gets on the radio and says, hey, I need help. I'm trapped in Dorothy Vallens' apartment. Frank is on his way here. He's probably armed. Then realizes Frank also has a police radio, and he probably just heard him say that. So Jeffrey says, I'm hiding in the back closet, but instead goes to the front coat closet where he had originally hidden the first time. While doing so, he grabs the gun out of Detective Gordon, the yellow man's pocket. Frank enters. He's screaming, I know where you're at. I have a radio too. Again, just profusely screaming. Enters the bedroom, starts shooting everywhere. Clearly realizes Jeffrey's not there. Comes back to the living room, shoots Gordon, kills him, and then looks at the closet and realizes that's probably where Jeffrey is.
Right.
So he opens the closet door to Jeffrey holding the gun on him. Jeffrey shoots Frank through the head, immediately killing Frank. Moments later, Sandy and Detective Williams bust in. Williams says it's all over, Oz. We then get an epilogue scene after that. Again, third incredibly intense scene here in this movie.
Yeah.
They're back in he's waking. Jeffrey's waking from a nap in the backyard. We get another shot of the picket fence and flowers. We see the same firefighter and Dalmatian from the beginning.
Yep.
And we end on Dorothy's son wearing the same party hat, running to his mother on a park bench, hugging each other as the camera pans up to a blue sky and credits roll over a blue dress in the foreground. And that, Oz, is 1986's Blue Velvet. Oof. What an intense movie.
Good time. Real good time.
Real knee slapper.
Yeah, I know. Such a comfortable watch.
Yeah, nothing unsettling about this movie at all. At this point in the show, folks, Oz and I each share our own unique rating about the film we've been yapping about. In this case, David Lynch's Blue Velvet. Oz, how would you rate this flick?
I'm going to give this a case of Heineken.
A case of Heineken.
Case of Heineken. How about you? What do you got?
Let's see. I did not pre-plan this one. I'm going to go with one ant-covered severed ear.
There you go. I was like, do I go Heineken or severed ear? Heineken or severed ear? I was trying to guess which one you weren't going to go with, and I thought, if I go with one, he'll go with the other. So there it is. Nice.
Mm-hmm. Excellent ratings, if I say so myself. Next up, folks, we've got Outside Insight. Oz and I have been scouring the interwebs, looking for unprofessional reviews that tickle our funny bones, and we hope they tickle yours too. Oz, what is your Outside Insight?
I have a 5-star review by MacLachlan off of Letterboxd, left March 2nd of this year.
Recent one.
No capital letters, just a heads up. Just so you can go ahead and apply the filter that you're...
Yep. It's there now, my friend.
I watched this movie because Mulholland Drive was cool. To my surprise, terrible and disgusting and vile, period. And to make matters worse, I didn't even understand this movie. I kept waiting for a scene that explained all the weirdness, but it never came. After watching YouTube videos and listening to a podcast, I now understand it only 1% better. But it didn't make me it didn't make me like it any better. Also, the deleted scenes of the movie literally provide context that in my opinion was needed to understand the movie, so interesting choice. Like,
I understood it 1% better.
Right. After watching YouTube videos and podcasts, once I did my research, I got an extra 1% of knowledge.
Statistical relevance.
Right.
I ran the T numbers and everything.
I picture like a thermometer on a poster board that he colors in, like, this is how much I understood this movie.
1%.
1% more. So that's MacLachlan's Outside Insight. Nice. What do you got?
Mine comes from the Internet Movie Database from April of 2005. This is Ruprecht. The heading is Blue Vomit, a 1 out of 10 rating. After hearing all the hype of how this is an artistic, intellectual, and enigmatic film, I figured I would love it to death. Instead, I found myself wishing for death.
Oh, the plot, thanks, Debbie Downer.
Yeah. The plot itself is tediously linear and simple, like an average Hardy Boys episode. But this is no Hardy Boys episode. Director David Lynch made sure of that by injecting plenty of profanity, gore, and nudity. And just as an aside to all of you drooling fans of Isabella Rossellini, trust me, she and her beer belly look awful in this movie. Save yourself the shattered fantasies.
Do you think it was a PBR or Heineken?
Ooh, Ruprecht really laying it on thick here.
Yeah. Oh, poor Isabella Rossellini doesn't deserve that.
No. My God, she was courageous in the making of this film.
Put herself out there for sure.
Yeah. So, sadly, Ruprecht, I do not agree with your 1-star Blue Vomit assessment.
No, not at all.
All right, folks, it's that time of the show you've all been waiting for, our signature segment, the 3, 2, 1, in which Oz and I each share 3 goods, 2 bads, and 1 about the film in question, Blue Velvet. Oz, what are your 3 goods?
My first one is just Lynch being Lynch.
Yeah.
I will agree with your reviewer in that really this storyline is pretty straightforward. I mean, there's back channel of a small town, mystery going on. Mm-hmm. A guy gets interested. I mean, really, it comes to a conclusion. It finalizes the story. There's no, like, a Twin Peaks fan, I know you are as well. Mm-hmm. Like, Twin Peaks has so much misdirection and odd and weirdness going on that it's like, at times it feels supernatural. This movie is very straightforward. This is just a crime kind of film noir-esque movie. But then Lynch layers on his frosting. Like it's that extra layer of unsettled imagery, odd, mesmerizing character. It's just that extra piece there is what separates what he does from anybody else. Like, you know, you're not going to watch this and think, oh, that's a Brian De Palma movie. Close. I think De Palma could have made just as quality a film, but just some of the stylistic choices of David Lynch really made it his own. So Lynch being Lynch. My second one is I really think that the Sandy Jeffrey kiss at the party was a cleansing moment for him. And I like that. I figure we see him kiss 2 people in this movie. Well, 3 if you include Frank. But we see him kiss 2 people in this movie, and the first person he kisses being Dorothy. He heads down that path, and he gets to a point where he doesn't want to be in that path anymore. Sandy's been there for him the whole time. They go to that party, they kiss, they exchange "I love yous," and that's the last we saw Jeffrey in Dorothy mode. Like, he went back to her apartment, but it was not for the same reasons he's been going prior. So I really like that kind of symbolic Sandy cleansed him from his decisions, you know, and made him who, I mean, I think she found him and got him back on track, got him back on the path. So I really like that. And my third is the woman dancing on the car at the outside Frank scene. Because it's that Lynch thing of that entire scene would have been just as tense without her there, but her climbing up on the car, not saying a word, and just finding enjoyment in what was happening was just disturbing. Like, Dorothy, who enjoys, or at least, you know, seems to have enjoyed the violence inflicted upon her sexually, wasn't even enjoying what was going on. But this woman, just this random woman was. And it was just like, it's that Lynch thing of, you know, the log lady and the man behind the dumpster in Mulholland Drive. Just that extra piece of like, you're not needed, but I'm glad you're there. So that's my 3 goods. What do you got?
My first is just the acting in this movie. Just amazing performances. MacLachlan and Dern are great as the young characters in this movie, but again, Hopper and Rossellini. Oh my goodness! Like you could accuse Hopper of overacting in this film, but like I really think that's what the character was supposed to be.
Exactly.
He's supposed to be he's supposed to be that extreme. So like I don't think there's a way you could almost overact that character.
No, I don't think so either.
And the little tiny moments of restraint, you know, like when he's with Ben, for instance, you know, it gives just enough levity. So when he is seething, and he seethes, it lays it on that much heavier.
Yeah, and we mentioned earlier how much he really like looks up to Ben and almost admires Ben, and I think some of it might be because we never see Ben flip. Like they're both on that side of that lifestyle, and I think he sees in Ben like, you've got it all together, man. Like, you do the same nasty stuff I do, and you keep your cool. Like, you're just so cool. Yeah, and that's something Frank could just never handle.
Yeah. So yeah, just amazing acting and performances in this movie, and again, as I mentioned before, just a tip of the cap to Isabella Rossellini, just for how brave of a performance that this was. Oh my goodness. My second will be we'll go with Angelo Badalamenti's music. You know, he and Lynch are just the perfect pairing of scorer and director, and it's eerie when it needs to be eerie. It's soft when it needs to be soft. It's aggressive when it needs to be aggressive, but it always fits. Like, they're just so in sync as creators. And my last good is the portrayal of trauma. Dorothy is just broken. She's broken. She's delusional. She hallucinates. She is clearly just a traumatized person. she's been through so much. She doesn't recognize who people are. She doesn't recognize who she is at times. And, to see that redemption at the end, that she's able to be back with her son and start the healing process, really brings that character full around. But again, just the portrayal of trauma, and that none of this is her fault. Even her enjoying, the violence in the sex with Frank and even with Jeffrey, that was still and her victimhood coming out there. And again, it goes to her performance as well, but just an amazing portrayal of how trauma can just absolutely break people. And it did with Dorothy.
And it's like, because of how broken she was, and I know this seems kind of backwards, I'm happy that her husband Don didn't make it through, because I don't think Dorothy could have handled a relationship. Knowing what she'd been through, I think there would have been a level of guilt, knowing what she had been doing with Frank and with Jeffrey and Lord knows who else, all for Don and little Don's safety. For that nuclear family to come back together, I don't think would have been functional for her.
Sure.
So for just to be her and her son, that is someone, it's like, I can finally love a man and not have to go to the extremes that I've been going to.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are my 3 goods. What are your 2 bads?
As appropriate as it was for Frank's character, like, his vocabulary is pretty limited. So that's why, not that I was really searching for bads, honestly.
Sure.
And so that's one, it's just like, obviously the F-bombs, and one of those that, my wife and I watch when we watch these movies, it's after the kids go to bed. And this was one where I've got the remote in my hand at all times, because I'm constantly turning it up and turning it down and turning it up and turning it down, because the kids are upstairs asleep, and then here's Frank on screen. So I better turn it down, because I know he's going to be very loud with his F-bombs, that kind of thing. So
he's going to call a character an F-word as a noun.
Exactly. So that's my first bad, is just, Dennis Hopper's vocabulary. And the second one, again, a reach. It's hard, really, because I just gave as one of my goods, Lynch being Lynch. But there were times where the amount of bizarre added to this made the plot a little difficult to follow.
Mm-hmm.
The constant referral to the Yellow Man. I mentioned pre-show, I had to go to Wikipedia and read the plot just to make sure I understood it correctly. Yeah. You've got Gordon working for the police force, takes out the other drug dealer. He's been stealing narcotics from the evidence closet for Frank. Like, all those things, if they were in the movie, I missed them.
Yeah.
Because of just the bizarre extra stuff going on. But that's also what makes this movie partially what it is and so memorable, is those oddities. So you take it, you take it, you lose it, whatever.
Sure.
So, those are my 2 bads. What do you got?
My first is just Jeffrey. I know at the beginning we kind of framed him as a good guy character, but Jeffrey's not necessarily a good guy.
Well, and honestly, I had him there until we kept talking about it.
Yeah.
Like, the more because as we're processing it and discussing it, I'm like, no, Jeffrey really was kind of like Frank, almost like college Frank, not full-grown Frank.
Sure, But again, that line, there's a reason why I made sure to mention that when I was going over the plot, where Frank in the car, he just turns to him and says, he says, like, we're the same.
Yeah. You're just like me.
Yeah. And they both enjoy their beer. Maybe it's a different brand, but they both enjoy it. And they both enjoy talking about it and making sure other people know it's their favorite. They're both manipulators. They both they both can get violent. They both know how to guilt people.
They both were in this movie. They both knew Dorothy Vallens.
Yep. They both drive cars.
They're both men. They were both in that car.
They were both in that car.
So there's a lot of similarities here.
So many similarities.
They both have a first and a surname. Like,
They were both alive in the 80s.
They were. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. If they weren't in the same place at the same time, I probably would have thought they were the same person.
Yeah. You got me there. My other bad is there's just a little moment where, again, love David Lynch as a director, but right at the end where Jeffrey's running back to Dorothy's apartment, he sees Frank as the well-dressed man, and he's chasing him down. He gets to the door, and Jeffrey takes out the keys to enter, and then he drops them, to kind of add tension to it. Yeah. It was just a little like, okay, like, yeah. And Kyle MacLachlan, he kind of did the like, whoa, like thing with his hands.
Yeah.
It just for a moment, it took me out of that scene.
Yeah.
But again, very minor complaint.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, Oz, what's your
How was Sandy still into Jeffrey after he did that chicken walk?
That's right. Oh, yeah, right at the beginning.
When they're going for a walk and they're just kind of flirty. I wouldn't even say they're flirty. They really weren't flirty. They were just talking, and their kid's kind of just this lull in the conversation. And then he just said, "Do you know how to do the chicken walk?" I mean, it's totally Lynch. Yeah. Of just, let's just shoehorn something weird in here.
Yeah.
But do you know how to do the chicken walk? She's like, I know. And then he starts doing it. He just kind of struts around, keeps his head in place while his body's. It just was. I'm like, oh man, it was just so weird. And it's like, how is she still into him after that? That would have been I gotta go.
Well, I mean, just like my Heineken fueled wedding. That's how you met your wife. Was you impressed her by doing the chicken walk?
I did. I did.
That's how you got a winner. She stuck around.
Yeah. Well, and it's because I showed, and she wasn't at the wedding, but I showed her.
Your wife wasn't at the wedding.
Well, she wasn't my wife at the time.
I meant your wedding.
Yeah. Oh no. Like I chicken walked at your wedding. Mm-hmm. And it was videotaped, and I showed my wife the videotape of your wedding.
Yeah.
And that's why we're together.
Uh-huh. You carried around the VHS with you.
I did. I had it on my Zune.
Oh, man. Okay.
What do you got for a
My is, again, kind of like yours, towards the beginning of the movie. Jeffrey brings this severed human ear to Detective Williams at the police station. And yeah. Williams looks in the bag and he goes, "Yep, that's an ear, all right." How come he's not more freaked out? Again, this is supposed to be small town, simple, safe suburbia. Right. And like, that's an ear. You're there. Right. You're not wrong.
You're right, Jeffrey.
I go throw this on the ear pile. Hey, he wasn't weirded out at all. Just another day, another ear.
That's right. We finally got a match for the other ear brought in.
He should have held it up to his ear like Pee Wee with the big ear.
What? Somebody's walking around out there like Mr. Potato Head.
He starts whispering into it.
Yeah, they bring Michael.
He's doing ASMR sounds.
Oh man, they bring what was it, Mr. from Reservoir Dogs? What color was it that cut off the ear? Mr. Orange, Mr. Pink, wasn't Mr. Brown.
Was it Mr. White, I think?
Yeah, it was Mr. White. Yeah, they bring him in for questioning. Like,
he's at it again,
Michael Madsen. Yeah, bring in Michael Madsen.
They start playing Steelers Wheel, and he just can't help himself.
Right. It would fit in this movie. So
it would, yeah.
Oh, well, that brings a Oh, wait, I looked this up because we talked earlier about Dilo De Laurentiis and his production company.
Yes, full circle.
And yeah, and I commented on some of the things. Like, I misspoke. The stuff that he's put out has been pretty amazing. The first film released by Dilo De Laurentiis was Raw Deal with Schwarzenegger. And that was 86. That same day, the same release date, June 6th of 1986, two Dilo De Laurentiis movies hit the cinemas. Raw Deal and My Little Pony the movie.
So many similarities between those.
Yeah, well, you look, we're not overlapping our audience here. 1 month later, Maximum Overdrive. Okay. August, Transformers the movie. A week after that, Manhunter, the first Hannibal Lecter movie.
Yep.
Then Blue Velvet and Radioactive Dreams came out the same day.
Huh.
Radioactive Dreams had George Kennedy, Michael Dudikoff, science fiction comedy. So again, it's not going to compete with Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
You've got a horror hard rock, like heavy metal movie called Trick or Treat. Gene Simmons, Ozzy Osbourne make appearances in that one. But then you've got other movies popping up here. Crimes of the Heart.
Okay.
Diane Keaton, Jessica, King Kong Lives. Evil Dead 2, Near Dark was a De Laurentiis movie.
That's right.
Hiding Out with John Cryer. I really like that movie. Pumpkinhead. And then a week later, Tapeheads with John Cusack, Tim Robbins. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Like, all of those De Laurentiis movies. So, and I mean, all of them, I won't say all of them, but a lot of them stood the test of time. Really.
Yeah, are either good movies or fun movies.
Yeah, like...
Or in a few cases, both, yeah.
Yeah, Maximum Overdrive, Transformers, Manhunter, Blue Velvet... Evil Dead 2, Near Dark, Pumpkinhead, Bill and Ted's, those are, those are big, successful movies. So, good for you, De Laurentiis.
Yeah.
So I misspoke because Flash Gordon was not on there. I need to look because it's going to drive me nuts if I don't look.
To see who the production company was.
Yes. Oh no, I want the movie. Where's the movie? Oh.
Now I'm thinking of Arnold, like a young Arnold Schwarzenegger, like voicing Pinkie Pie from My Little Pony.
Get to the rainbow. Come on. My fingers aren't typing fast enough here. There we go. It was De Laurentiis. It was De Laurentiis. It just wasn't his production company.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, De Laurentiis goes back to producing films all the way back to 1946. So he was already producing films for 40 years before he started, De Laurentiis production.
Like his own company, yeah.
Yeah. And, of course, I'm not even going to go on and on there. But those same movies that I was mentioning, others in 1985, I mentioned Maximum Overdrive, but also Silver Bullet, Cat's Eye, Red Sonja, Dune, going backwards, Conan the Destroyer, Firestarter, Dead Zone, Halloween 3, Conan the Barbarian, Halloween 2.
I thought I remember De Laurentiis with Conan the Barbarian.
Halloween 2, Flash Gordon. So there were others in there. And I skipped over a couple of Amityville movies. So it's pretty much early Stephen King, early 80s, early to mid 80s Stephen King was pretty much all De Laurentiis. Yeah. So good for him.
Yeah.
And again, worked with some great directors. Here I'm just skimming here. Robert Altman, Ingmar Bergman, William Friedkin, John Milius, David Cronenberg, David Lynch, of course, Stephen King.
Carpenter was in there.
Yeah. John Irvin, Michael Mann, Sam Raimi, Bob Clark, Tom MacLachlan, Eugene Levy. He let Eugene Levy direct a movie for him. He did Army of Darkness. Another Stephen King movie. Sometimes they come back. And then there's Richard Donner's in here. The Wachowskis, Ridley Scott, Brett Ratner.
Brett Ratner. He has worked with everybody.
My mouth just kept moving. I didn't mean that last one. We've got one more week of Bluevies month.
We do. What do we got in store, Oz?
We are going to watch a movie called Blue Ruin. Easily the least heard of the four films we're covering this month. But it definitely falls more in vein with Blue Velvet than with Blue Chips.
Yes. Or Deep Blue Sea.
Or that one, yeah. Blue Ruin came out in 2013. I do enjoy this movie. I really enjoy this director, Jeremy Saulnier. And this is one of his first ones that, he really kind of It's one of those guys that like has his little stable of things. The first movie I think I've seen of his was 2007's Murder Party, which is an extremely fun horror film, borderline funny. Mm-hmm. This guy gets a random invitation to a Halloween party, and it's like a murder party. So he's like, "Oh, this will be fun. I'm going to a horror themed party." No, it's a legit murder party.
It's a literal murder party.
That these people get together to murder someone. But it's so much fun because just the characters that they dress up as, like our main character almost dresses up like a Monty Python and the Holy Grail, like knight.
Okay.
But then you've got another character that's dressed as Daryl Hannah's character in Blade Runner. Like,
okay.
It's a lot. It's short. It's only like an hour and 20 minutes, but it's basically he's trying to escape this murder party. It's a lot of fun. And then just 8 years later, he's directing Green Room with Aaliyah Shawkat, Imogen Poots, Patrick Stewart, and Anton Yelchin. Like, that movie's excellent as well.
Yeah, I've seen that. Another very intense,
very intense,
very bleak movie. Yeah.
Yes, and so just good stuff coming out of this guy, and so we're gonna hit his second feature, Blue Ruin, to put a wrap up on Bluevies month. Social media wise, you guys can find us Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. There is a Patreon link down below if you'd like to hear your name. If not, we won't say it. How do you like that?
Not gonna do it.
So you listened for us to not say your name. So I guarantee you we won't.
We won't
unless you pay us to. So
Pony
we got one more week, and then we hit an episode 82. Is that right? 82 or 81? 82, I believe, is next week. Episode 82. Almost to 100.
On the road to 100,000.
We got one more episode before school's out.
Yeah.
Oh,
almost summertime.
Moving forward. Almost summertime. That takes us to next month's theme, Will Smith movies. No, I'm kidding. We're not.
Summertime.
Yeah, we're not doing that. We're only going to do Will Smith movies where the name of the movie coincides with the theme song also performed by Will Smith. So we'll be covering Wild Wild West. We'll be covering Men in Black.
Yep.
Hitch, although he didn't.
Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah. Did he do a Pursuit of Happiness song?
Yeah. It was a big hit. Remember? Pursuit of Happiness.
Of happy. Right. Exactly. And Bad Boys, because he sang the title track to Bad Boys.
He did. Bad Boys.
When he was part of Inner Circle. That one. So no, Will Smith movies are not next month. So but no, that puts a wrap on this episode. We will be back next week with Blue Ruin for Let's Talk About Flicks. I'm Oz.
I'm Curtis.
And we'll see you at the movies.